sense.
No, I think, again, for people who have got that ambition that you're talking about and that kind of are a younger version of you, a young version, do you know what I mean, aspiring football coach, and wants to have a great pathway like you've had, you probably think there's key moments for you, grassroots to academy to a first team environment, and what are some of the kind of key things that help support you, is definitely what people will take from this 100%.
Let's not get too excited. I left in April that year, do you know what I mean? Didn't last the whole season there in the end.
So October, third in the league, you're doing well, you're flying.
Yep.
It seems to me like all your cars are falling the right way. Obviously your recruitment was on point. Whatever you're doing in the coaching on the grass is doing well. You're converting it into results. Where does it go wrong? Yeah,
so we like we said, we had a good start. We had a great FA Cup run. We beat Bury. We drew with Bury at home in League One. They were flying quite high at the time with a big budget, and then we beat them away 3-0. Then we drew with Peterborough at home, League One as well, pushing to get in the Championship, and then we drew with them. We lost to them away. And we'd had 3 cup replays in that time, so that was an extra 6 games. And I think we were a small squad, young squad, and probably the games and that caught up with us in the end. Because of the position of where we were, we knew come January we'd probably have to sell some players. We sold the lad I talked about, Joe Ward. Yeah. We sold Ini Effiong, a striker, to Scotland, who we wanted to replace and we thought we could replace. Then we lost another lad, Regan Charles Cook, who was at Charlton at the time. If you know him, I think he's up in Scotland playing now too. And that was really probably our front 3 players. And the players that I got in weren't as good as those players, unfortunately. And great lads, but just not as good. And I probably couldn't use as much of the money as I'd like to get the players in that I wanted to. So I learned some great lessons from that. It was tough. Don't give them away
till the summer.
Yeah, or sell some but not the others. Sell the right ones. So the one that probably out of those 3 wasn't the best player was the forward, Ini Effiong. But because he was big, physical, scored I think maybe 9 goals, 10 goals by that time, he was just such a focal point. And when we lost him, he allowed the other ones to play. So I think that was probably the challenge. And having a bit more of a succession plan come January and dealing with it. We probably started too well in a way. We probably, if we just petered along around 13th, 14th, it would have helped us a little bit.
Peak later.
Yeah, and I think I probably ended up changing 5 players over in January, and I felt for the way I worked and the way I coached, the games were coming thick and fast come January, and I couldn't implement what I wanted to that I did pre-season when I had the whole squad together. So that was definitely something that I learned. Change over less players and just bring in better players, obviously. But it's amazing. Sometimes your hands are tied in that situation. So I certainly learned a lot from that, and it was tough. I think we went 9 games without a win. We had 2 draws, which were good draws by the way in that time. But unless you win in that time, and then I left just at the start of April. So the team were 3 points above the relegation zone. Yeah.
So in that period of things not going well, what's the relationship with the board? How does that? How do you manage up? How do you manage when things are not going well?
Well, that'd be something that I definitely learned from that situation, and to manage up better and keep the communication lines open. I think letting them know what your plans are. I think foreseeing what, say we're in that position, I was in that position again, which you always do. You learn from it, and it was learning quick and fast. Was seeing coming into the January period more so what the team needed, and making sure you got those players in, and like you say, managing up and speaking to the board about what you're going to need during that January period, and how important it'll be to get those players to keep us on the right track. So I think as well, managing the media was something that I hadn't really done before. You don't really get that in academy football. You don't get. I was surprised at that level, actually, even like National League level, the spotlight that was on you, the interviews every week, the social media, that sort of thing. So managing that and learning how to manage that, I'm definitely a lot better at now, and feel I'd be in a good position to go in and manage again if I was in that situation, and without a doubt manage it better, I'm sure.
Is that something that you advise younger coaches if they were aspiring to be that? It's something you got to kind of familiarise yourself with, or learn a little bit about, get some specific training with in terms of media, that kind of media attention you get, and communicating in a way that you're protecting yourself and the club and what's going on, and not getting caught out.
I think it's so important, because you don't really necessarily go on a coaching course and learn that. We did a little bit about it on the pro licence, but not so much on the early coaching course. And I think when young coaches, and I'd be guilty of doing it myself, when you go and speak to coaches, you'd always speak about session design and players and formations and things like that, which are obviously good too, but you wouldn't speak as much about managing the media, handling the pressure, handling the stress of the job, because it is totally different. I mean, as you know, in academy football, you've got 20 parents on the other side who can't say anything anyway, and then all of a sudden I'm there in front of not many people, like 1,500 people, who are screaming for you to take the right back off, who you know is not very good, but you don't have anyone to bring them on anyway. So I'm not sure anybody can coach you or teach you how to deal with that at the time. That's why I have so much respect for managers who've been in the game for so long. Can deal with that. Yeah, and
constant.
But what I would say is that's part of the game. And when I was obviously I don't believe, I think managers are sacked far too early, and they don't have enough time to bring through young players, and a bit more longevity would help the game. There's no doubt about that. But I knew that I said it to my wife actually at the time, I said, look, if I'm going to go into first team football, one, I wanted to look after my family, which was important if I got the sack, and or probably more so when you get the sack, because you definitely will, but also that to not complain about it when it happened, because I got that job because someone got the sack, and I got the job at Grimsby because someone else left their job, and I'm looking for a job now, and I really need someone else to leave for me to get back in. So I could have stayed at West Ham in not necessarily a comfortable job, but it was an academy job and a safer environment. So when I go into that environment, I made sure, I said to myself that I was never going to complain about it, because I chose to go down that path, and I wanted to have that risky. I wanted to have that challenge, and that was, so I tried to remind myself of that during the tough times, which it was hard. No one likes to lose or lose their job, but look, I can't complain about it, and I've got to learn the lessons from it, and that's what it's about.
And what are those periods out of football like? You don't. Everyone talks about it. In regards to being away from it, finding it difficult to get jobs, and having to be involved in some way, keep yourself active in the environment.
Probably the first time when I left Southampton, I went back to Australia for a little bit, and I was out for about 6 months. I left in, I think, the July, and then got back in about the February, so maybe a little bit less. But that was probably the hardest one for me, because I'd never really been out of work. So it's kind of like, wow, and you've got the intensity of taking sessions every day and working all the hours under the sun, and you're building to the next game, or you're developing players and young players and working with them, and it's all encompassing, and then all of a sudden it's switched off. And the first time out of work was really hard. Like with everything like we're talking about, I learned a lot from that experience, and thought if I'm in it again, I'll make use of that time. So when I left Woking, I was out for a couple of months and got back in at Grimsby, and just really evaluated, got all my philosophy together, got my clips together, made sure my sessions were good and ready to go for the next job. And I think I learned from that experience to take some time out, evaluate, go and watch some different types of football at different levels as well. So I think, and then this time now I'm out of work again, I find it a lot easier because I've been there before. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's nice to have a break actually a little bit. Don't tell anyone, but for anyone who's listening to this. But it's I make sure I use the time a lot more wiser now. But I think sometimes you need that. I found I had sort of 5 long years at Southampton, and then I had a break. I've had the next 5-year period of West Ham, Woking and Grimsby, and then I've had a little break now with COVID and that sort of thing as well. So I felt that sometimes you need that downtime just mentally. And then you go again, and it rejuvenates you and gets you back in.
I think it can be quite refreshing, that downtime. You miss it, but you can collect yourself, you can think about things that are not going well, maybe observe people, talk to people, have those kind of less pressured conversations and times with yourself. I mean, you're fortunate enough to have a family that you can spend loads of time with. So I think it's you see it as a positive, really. Although at the time you're thinking, oh God, here we go.
I think my wife would prefer me to be back at work.
Sure.
But just on that as well, there's an interesting bit from, I think when I went from, I think the constant knockback and setbacks that coaches get, whether it's academy or first team, of applying for jobs, not getting jobs, is an underrated or an underestimated thing of how to deal with that. How to deal with that thing. And I think I wrote down every job that I went for between Southampton and West Ham, and it looks great on the CV probably. Been at Southampton, then gone to another Cat 1 academy club, West Ham, and there was 6 months in between. It was an easy process. It really wasn't. Because I think I wrote it down as something like, I think 35 or 37 jobs I'd applied for in that period of time. Either got a knockback, a setback, we don't want you, we don't have enough money, not enough experience, you've left Southampton, we're not sure why. Do you know what I mean? All those things come up. And that was, and I wrote them all down as probably more for motivation really, to keep me going. And I I think that can be one of the most underestimated things as a coach, because I'm sure other coaches don't feel like other people go through those things, but you really do, and it is constant knockbacks and going again, and you prepare for a job and you do all your research, and they hire someone else, and that's what's going to happen, and it is a constant.
I think that is important for other people in similar situations to hear from. If they'll be refreshed for that, not in a negative sort of way to hear, do you know what, other people, but just to be motivated by the fact that keep going. Do you know what I mean? Don't stop. Definitely. Keep applying. Do it in the right way, obviously, but just keep that kind of mental strength, hopefully, and conversations. I mean, in talking to somebody else, they were talking about the fact that people. It develops that network of support where other people are saying, you know what, hello, how are you? How are you doing? What's going on? Do you want to come down and watch a training session, or just to get yourself out of the house in the morning and stuff like that? So, if you're out there, just that support amongst coaches, which I think is getting better, where we support each other and not feel like it's a threat, but definitely feel like you're offering support in some sort of way.
Sure. So then, how did the interview at Grimsby differ from Woking? So obviously now you've gone for a new job. How was that process?
Yeah, quite different really, because I knew the manager at Grimsby beforehand. It was Michael Jolly. He was at Burnley and did a little bit at Crystal Palace, and we sort of knew each other loosely from playing against each other. We'd done our pro licence I think he was maybe on the course before me, so we'd sort of come in contact with each other, and we knew each other beforehand. So he gave me a call and said, I'm looking for an assistant manager, and I went and met him, and that was it really. Do you know what I mean? So we had a real good conversation. I felt like we were aligned anyway, and we'd work well together. I sort of offered my services to him, saying that, look, I'd been a manager, so I know what you're going through. I want to learn off someone like you, and it was a step up into the Football League, and I felt that I could really help him do that. And we still speak in contact. We're still in contact now. He's a great guy, and I've learned a lot from him. So that was very different. No presentation, no suit, no tie. It was just a lunch in a hotel, and we went from there. However, I felt there was a lot of like rapport, and we'd sort of knew each other, or we did know each other before, and although we hadn't worked together, we knew that we'd get on well, and he was looking for that type of person, I think.
And how was he directed your way? You just knew each other, or mutual friends?
Yeah, he contacted me. He contacted me. So and we did have mutual friends. We had a person who was on his course I was really good friends with and had known for ages. We'd done our badges, I think, maybe the B licence and A licence together, and he was very close with him. So it was probably a combination of things.
Which I always say to people on courses, as much as you get learning from the courses, I think you develop a network amongst coaches by being on sort of coach education courses or one of the LMA, FA, any sort of course in terms of football. You definitely get a networking where could come in handy later down the line, for sure.
So what's the biggest challenges as an assistant manager?
I think what the biggest challenge is a good one, because you can be closer to the players. You are a little bit closer to the players, I think, anyway, but you still respect the manager and what his decisions are. So, for example, I'd probably learnt this from my assistant at Woking, was very good at, we'd be in the coach's room and we'd have full-on arguments about the team or what we'd want to do, but then the minute I was the manager, I'd make the final decision. We'd go out the room, and when we're on the grass, he would totally back whatever my decision was, even if that was against him. So he taught me a lot about how to be an assistant manager and do that. So the similar thing would happen. I think as the assistant manager, you owe it to the manager to tell him what you think, but in the right way at the right time. I think we should play 4 at the back. He thinks we should play 3. I'm not going to go out there and say to the players, I should be playing 4 at the back here. You go out and you deliver what he needs because you're there to support him. So I think I definitely wouldn't have been able to do the job as well if I hadn't been a manager, which probably some people would think, once you become a manager, don't you want to be a manager all the time? But I wanted to learn and wanted to develop. And I've got a good relationship with Michael and also with Ian Holloway, who's there now, who I assisted as well for a small period of time. So, I think that's probably the biggest challenge, but one that I felt was really important to get across.
Good. Very interesting.
So in terms of, I think my big question would be, and again, I don't want to dwell on negativity too much. I don't like negativity too much, but so when things aren't going well at Grimsby and you're not necessarily the one in charge, how, or Did was it Martin? Was it?
Michael, yeah.
When
Michael
Michael
was the
left,
manager,
did you
Michael
remain?
Yeah, well, what happened was Michael, ended up, he got the sack. And I thought, I would go as well. So this was this was in November. So I thought, back home for Christmas, it'd be nice, spend a bit of time with the family. That didn't happen, because obviously as you're under contract yourself, you can't just leave.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've got a family to support and whatnot. And I got asked to be caretaker manager. So that was quite a shock. I didn't think that was going to happen because he brought me in, Michael. So I thought when he leaves, I would leave.
Yeah, you're part of the team.
Yeah, which was, and I didn't expect that. So then the next minute he's gone, and then all of a sudden you've got these players. I'm the caretaker manager. I think I was caretaker for 9 games.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was caretaker for a longer, and then Ian Holloway came in after that.
So another transition in terms of all of a sudden you're quite, I don't want to say pally, but that kind of assistant coach role where you are a little bit closer. You do maybe have more of a laugh and a joke with them. Now all of a sudden you're the boss now. I'm the boss. My decision's final. I'm picking a team. I'm picking that formation. Was there did you have to change a little bit?
Yeah, I mean I was quite determined, I thought, to still be myself, because I thought if you change too much, then one thing I learned was first team players will find you out if you're not being yourself. So I thought I'm still going to act the same way and just be myself, because that's how I always am. And I think that was important. It was harder when you were dropping players, because normally the manager would do that, and then my job would be to go and pick them up. Yeah. And go, come on, Barry, look, I know you're not playing this week, but the manager thinks highly of you and blah, blah, blah. Whereas you were the one who was doing that now yourself. I never really felt I had a problem with that, because that's part of being a manager and what you had to do. But I think it was, I think we drew maybe 3 or 4 games and only won 1 in that time. So there's a bit of pressure on us to win at the time. And I think it was the last game that we won, which was the 9th game. So it was a little bit too late. But it was a good learning curve for me, because it was a step up from the National League. League 2 was a lot more intense. Good managers, better teams you're playing against. So it was a good challenge, and one I hope I get the opportunity to do again one day. But it was different because it all happened so quick. We had a couple of bad results. Then the manager left. I'm thinking I'm leaving myself, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're
in charge.
You're in charge, doing all the interviews and speaking the board and doing all those things. So it was, I think the experience that I'd had before helped me with that, though, because I felt more confident to do it because I'd been a manager before. Cool. So that definitely helped. But it was a challenge. Yeah.
Cool. Before we move on to the advice corner, I'd say, what's next for you? What's your...
Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, at the moment, I've just left Grimsby, so I've been there for 2 seasons. I had 2 good years there. Great place, fans, unbelievable, amazing fans. Some stories for another time, but amazing fans there. And it's a good question, because I'm going to open myself up for opportunities in academy football as well. I've got good experience in academy football. Probably
which
around that.
Just to touch on, which I think is happening a lot in regards to League 1, League 2, first team experience, moving into maybe Premiership 23s, because of that transition support for what you might get in the lower leagues, a younger team, loan players. That's it. But you can work with the 23s in a similar sort of way, the B teams that are now starting to develop in certain clubs. So I think you've given yourself, in regards to opportunity, I can do everything for you, really. I can set up an academy, I can be the academy, I can be in the 18s, 23s, first team. I mean, you've for anybody listening, the way that you've set yourself up, I think it's
I think it's, for me, the next move is about being in a good environment. So whether that's an under-16 team in a good academy, or where I can learn from like coaches and get challenged with your sessions, or whether that be a good first team coach at a good league club that wants to push on and get promoted. I can see myself doing either, really. A little bit of stability. I think my next role could be good. I'd like to spend a period of time in the one place. So pretty much open to all sorts. That's the exciting thing about football, isn't it? Nice. There's different countries you can go to, different levels, there's quite good options there. But listen, at the moment as well, being in the pandemic and what's going on at the minute, it's a tough time to be able to work as well. Sure. Remaining positive and looking forward to that next challenge.
That's good. So we call, the way that we generally end the show is kind of our advice corner. And now it's really interesting in regards to your experience. Where would the advice be? I think we definitely advice around young people in a first team environment. Definitely advice around a young person. Definitely advice around a coach. I'm going to start with a coach. Sure. What would your advice be to a young aspiring coach?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I get that question a fair bit, and a lot of it starts off with, can I go and watch like good people work? And I think that's great. You need to watch good people work. But my advice, which I just found worked well for me, was to get as many hours on the grass you can at as many different levels as you can as well. So I found that just by having that variety of coaching to get the actual time and hours on the grass, I think you need to be coaching 20 hours a week minimum on the grass if you're young or young in terms of your experience as a coach. Yeah. To be doing 2 or 3 sessions a day of different degrees, and then that will help you when you work, hopefully, one day and you progress to working with those better players. So I think just honing the craft, practicing your sessions, making mistakes, trying something with a classroom of 30 kids and then going and trying it with the under-18s team, and what's the difference between the two? How do you plan and prep? What's different? Nice. And really studying the craft of coaching your delivery, and not just the actual session, but like, what do you say in the session? Where do you stand? How do you stop it? How can you go in and coach an 11v11 session, but then take an individual right back for a session as well? What's the difference? Do you know what I mean? I think that's really get on the grass and coach as much as you can, regardless of the level. I think a lot of people now, well, not a lot of people, but some will be like, I'm only going to work with this 18s team 2 times a week and once on the weekend because that's the best level I can get. Yeah. My advice would be, well, what do you do on Monday, Wednesday, Friday? And go and work with that grassroots team. Go and work with the under 7s. Go and work with to build up that repertoire of coaching. And that might not be the advice everyone would give, but that's what I found worked for me.
My next would be to a young player going into a first team environment. What would your advice be to that person? Yeah,
I think you got to be confident. I think you need to be reliable. I think that's so important as well. So I think being able to deliver what the manager and the coach wants in that particular moment. So sometimes if the team's struggling and they're playing a certain way, you've got to go in and deliver that. But I think also just going and bringing your strengths. I think that young player needs to bring their strengths. They're at that level for a reason, and they need to go and try and progress and push on for that. So I think bringing your strengths to that first team game that you have been doing in the younger ages is so important.
Yeah, and I think for me, I've got a couple. And just, seeing staff working in environments and sometimes not getting in the rut, but, things may not be going their way. Sometimes not agreeing with senior management. Sometimes, there's budget issues. There's the different things going on. What advice would you be to anybody that's kind of just struggling in their current environment? What advice would you give that person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to yourself to help create that environment as well. I think every coach at every level, whether you're a first team manager, under 14s academy coach, or working in grassroots, you'll always have things that'll be problems and struggles in your environment. You'd be surprised at what do you know what I mean? What people have at certain levels. And I thought when I went through the system, these certain things wouldn't happen, but they still do, and vice versa. So I think you can either get caught up with them. I think if it's something that you can change yourself, then putting the right plan in place to change it is important. But if it's something that you can't control and you want to stay in that level and that environment, then really having a conscious effort to focus on what you're doing yourself, and always believe, try and look at yourself and see what you're doing first, I think is good. But there will be frustrations in politics, I think, all the way through whatever level you're at, and things that are against you. But I think that's football, and that's the bit of the game. Listen, if it is too bad, then you might need to get another job. But I really do think it's you can control a lot more than what you actually think.
Yeah, and I think finally, sometimes the forgotten group, the parents. Sometimes parents get forgotten. And I know you spoke about the knowing the individual, knowing the person, and the young boy coming from Portsmouth, and he had a struggle to get there, and all the rest of it. And unfortunately, that young person never had the parents. And academy football's full of parents that are travelling up and down the country. I know when the announcement was made that Birmingham City was closing their academy, I know that it's kind of turned itself upside down now. But there was parents on Twitter saying, I've been driving 60 miles for the last 8 years, and I've just been told it's all over, just like that. Yeah. And you can see that parent, he kind of really took it to heart, and a lot of investment's gone into it. I know parents have changed jobs to support their dream. I know some parents have stopped their other children participating in other after school clubs just to facilitate taking that one child to academy football. So what advice would you give to a parent that is, coming into or being involved in academy football? What advice could you give that parent?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, the coaches, I think they need to have those communication lines open to the parents. I think that's important, something I learned and took me many years to learn. I think sort of laying down the expectations of the parents, I think, is important on what you expect from them, but then being open to chat and speak to them regularly about their son or daughter's development, I think, is so key. I think from a parent's point of view, I think it's probably understanding that I think if their kid needs to enjoy the game, like the bare minimum, whether it's grassroots, under 15s academy, category 1 football, I don't think it makes a difference, even first team, that the players need to enjoy the game. So I think if there's any doubt that your son or daughter's not enjoying their football, then that needs to be a conversation and a plan put in place moving forward, because I think there is a lot of pressure on parents and a lot of pressure on players these days, seeing what the rewards can be if they can get through the system and make it, but then having an understanding that the likelihood of getting right to that top level is very remote and very hard, but also understanding that might be the player's dream too, and supporting them. And I think we always used to say, there was a good saying at Southampton, it was 95% the player, 5% the coach, and you could probably say that with the parents as well. I think, in my experience, the best ones have allowed the players to develop personally, off the field, on the field, and allowed them to go and play and work with the staff and the coaches there. I think maybe sometimes I've seen some parents who have tried to have too much input, and with their hearts in the right place. Do you know what I mean? Me being a new father now, I understand what that's about. I might not have before, but I think that understanding that just letting their child develop and making them be the best that they can be. That might not be Premier League level. That might not be League 2 level. That might be playing football for fun at a lower level. But as long as that player can develop into the best player and person that they can be, I think that's the most important thing. So I've probably sat on the fence there with that answer a little bit. But
no, I think that last bit was really, really good. I think in terms of parents enjoying taking the time to enjoy their son playing football, enjoy the journey, but don't pressurise the journey. I think Troy Townsend said that once. Try not to pressurise the journey. Just let your son enjoy it. Trust the staff to do well. If you need to be your son or daughter's advocate, then obviously you're going to come in and step forward. But just allowing them to enjoy the journey. I think you said it perfectly. I like that. 95% player, 5% parent.
5%, parent coach, as we would say. I mean, you say that a bit because it was a good one I caught on to, and because it meant that the whole responsibility was with the player. It's really what you do, and you've got to come to the coach and ask the questions and think about where you need to improve your game and do the work and the skills yourself. Don't be relying on the coach type thing. And you could probably say that for the parents as well.
Well, I think what a way to end the show, I think. So Anthony, really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Again, that was a fantastic episode. I think coaches, parents, and I think also grassroots, I think, will definitely pick up a lot from that, from this episode. So really, really appreciate your time. Thank you, my friend.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me. Cheers. Thank you.